Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mobility Magic on a Monday morning. This is the first session of the week for the Good Life Live channel, and today we are focused on some rotational work. So we're releasing a little bit of tension in the spiral net. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. If you've joined us for the first time, welcome to you. If you haven't seen this before, this is a mobility session designed to kind of take you through a few stretches and releases and mobility techniques which are going to help you to get moving much better. So if you've joined us on the replay, welcome to you. Feel free to pause at any time. If you are new, as I say, welcome. And if you have any feedback, anything you'd like us to cover in the next few sessions, feel free to leave them in the comments at the end of the session. Just going to kind of let a few more people come in. As I say, for today's session, you'll need a lacrosse ball. That's why I have it in hand. We'll also need a foam roller. And if you have a stick or a broom handle, that's always useful, but not necessary. We're going to use those tools today to help you become a little bit more mobile and flexible in the rotation of the body. So hello to those that are joining. Nice to see you all. Just going to turn the comments off quickly, and we will get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to do, if you joined before, you kind of know the score with this one. We're going to start with the feet because that tends to be the gateway, the low-hanging fruit, the thing that kind of helps us get more mobile quicker. For most people, this is a great area of opportunity. So we're going to start at the base of the big toe. So I like to add a little bit of downward pressure, about 6 or a 7 out of 10. That kind of helps me to get the right amount of releasing that plantar fascia, that tissue under the foot. And we're not looking for any pain, so if you feel really uncomfortable, just back it off to about 6 or a 7 out of 10 in terms of your comfort level. So we're just going to start to bring our toes up and our toes down, and essentially we're just starting to work that tissue out, start to release it. So we're up, we're down, we're just working towards the middle, just below the toes. We're not kind of in the middle of the foot, but we're just working below the knuckles of the toes. And again, fingers or toes splaying slightly so that you get kind of this nice separation, this nice space between the toes, and also that tissue's on stretch as well, so you kind of bring your foot up and your toes up as well. You're going to start to roll slightly. You're going to start to move the foot slightly. Now we're not going big rolls, just small rolls, just to start to get that tissue to slide. It doesn't have to be big movements, but it's enough to kind of get that toe and the foot to kind of move. Now we're going kind of figure eights across the foot. We're just going to get a little bit of a slide. You can even go side to side if you want, but you're always starting with a slow release, light pressure, and you can build up over time. Now we're working our way back towards the middle of the foot, and if you don't kind of feel anything either side, so on this medial side or the lateral side, you can skip straight towards where the heel is, and you can kind of see if there's anything hanging out there. Now, downward pressure is, say, 6 or 7 out of 10. Make sure that it's your scale and you're not trying to go red face and you're breathing as you do it. So now a little bit of left to right, a little bit of rotation across the foot. See how that feels. Now let's work on the other side. So we're starting again, base of the big toe, and we'll just bring the toe up and down, a little bit of downward pressure into the foot, up and down. Trying to get those toes to move, the tissue to glide, just coming up and down. Now, if you are at work or you don't have a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball, something similar, just grab anything with an edge or hard surface or a corner or something and do the same thing, just to kind of see if you can get a little bit of a release. So we're just bringing our toes up, toes down, toes up, toes down. Should start to feel things loosen up as we go. Again, toes up, toes down. Start to move towards the outside of the foot, that lateral edge. And now we're going to start to kind of go figure eight, which moving round, across, down, a little bit of pressure, not too much, and we just start to release that tissue on the bottom of the foot. So again, if you're on replay, feel free to pause, take as long as you need on this one. If you're watching live, take as long as you need, but we're not going to spend as long on the foot rolling today. So if you find it's beneficial, you start to feel a little bit of release, feel free to come back to this or add this into your own mobility regime as well. So again, near the back or the heel of the foot, just putting a little bit of downward pressure, just see how that feels. We go left to right. For some people, this can be a really uncomfortable area. So Intensity is not necessary here. You may want frequency instead with a little bit of pressure, just a tiny bit, because that's maybe what's going to help you. So we're just going left to right, okay? Awesome, so let's put the lacrosse ball away for now. We don't need it probably for the rest of the session, so we're just going to put it to the side. We're going to have a seat on a chair. Today we're focused on a little bit of a toe release first. So if you've done this before, you know that this can be a little bit uncomfortable first, but once you kind of work into it, it's fine. You're going to take your fingers, and you're going to put it in between your toes. So ultimately we're having our thumb on the outside of our big toe, and we're threading every finger in between the toes. The idea here is we're going to get a little bit of traction, a little bit of separation, a little bit of lengthening. You're going to release those toes and actually help kind of take some tension out of the bottom of the foot. So with your fingers in between the toes, and again, I get if this feels uncomfortable, we're just starting to rotate the foot just a little bit and traction the toes away from you. So we're traction away, we're starting to rotate, so rotating the foot. If you can see the bottom of my foot here, I'm just starting to rotate the foot. So essentially you're taking the toes away from you and you're starting to rotate this foot to get a little bit of traction and a little bit of release on the plantar fascia on the bottom of that foot. And you can also drive it into a little bit of plantar flexion. That's the foot, so you're trying to point the toe down. That can also work as you kind of bring it around. You can also do some big ankle movements as well. So we're tractioning the toes away from us to create a little bit of space in the joint, and then we kind of bring it around the corner, and we're also kind of doing a bit of a figure eight. So combination of those things are really great. We can also kind of do a dish rag effect where we're twisting the foot. That also helps. Dish rag on the foot is great. Rotating the foot. Rotation, rotation. And see how that feels. So again, this is designed to just kind of help tease out that tissue. Shouldn't be painful, should just be a little bit uncomfortable, but enough and bearable. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to splay the toes. So I would take your fingers, widen them as far as you can, and then squeeze your fingers with your toes. So you should scrunch your toes up, squeeze those fingers as hard as you can. And the idea here is that we're starting to splay the toes, get a little bit of distance. Should feel a little uncomfortable, but bearable. And now we're going to squeeze the toes. And now we're going to separate the toes to get that space. We're going to squeeze, 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 squeeze. And now we're separating. And now a little bit of traction to finish and a little bit of a rotation. Okay, so that'll be right foot done. Let's switch over to the other side. So bring this leg across. Again, do what you can and what feels comfortable. And if you're at work in the office and you've got your feet out, just make sure you close the office door, and I'm sorry for your friends and colleagues. But if you are at home on your own, then this is completely fine, obviously. So you're going to splay the toes, you're going to put the fingers in between the toes again. We're going to traction it away from us and around that corner, and we're starting to get a little bit of a roll on the toes, just rotating slightly. So we should get this like rotational oscillatory kind of traction as well, up and around the corner. We're rotating. If you get any clicks and pops in your toes, not our intention, but if you get them, that's fine too. So rotation, rotation, start to feel a little bit of rotation in the foot. And then we're gonna dish rag slightly. So you can even take the bottom of your foot away from the toes, but you're kind of twisting that foot slightly. Our intention here is just to kind of tease out what we can, and we're tractioning the toes away from us. So just remember that the idea is we're creating length in that foot, and we're tractioning away, and we're creating a little bit of rotation. So you should start to get this rotation as you traction away, okay? And around, we're getting that nice rotation, that squeeze of the foot, that traction away from us, that stretch of the plantar fascia of the foot. So let's get a little bit of splaying of the toes, because again, that really feels great. Might be uncomfortable at first, but it'll feel great afterwards. So we're going to scrunch the toes up into the fingers, squeeze, 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 and then we're going to stretch, and we're going to space out the toes a little bit. And then we're going to squeeze, 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 and then we're going to scrunch the toes up and space them out. And we're just trying to create that space and finish off with just a little bit of a traction and a little bit of twist. And we can even plantar flex that foot into kind of a point and see how that feels as we kind of twist. So that's the foot done with this one. We can also stand to do a little bit of plantar flexion too. So I'll show you from the side so you can see. We're going to bring our toes down to the floor. Now if you have any pre-existing conditions with the toes and it feels really uncomfortable, be nice to yourself, be kind, try not to force it too much, just looking for a light stretch. And we're just going to bring our shin forward so we feel a little bit of stretch on the foot. And now we're going to go other side, feel the stretch on the front of the foot as well. And we can even bring it out to the side slightly. Now, I did mention earlier that you probably need to grab a broom handle of sorts. I'm going to demonstrate why in a second. It's just purely for demonstration purposes, but can be a useful tool. We're going to do a little bit of rotation work. So I like to use foam roller here. Just put it in between my knees just to kind of help demonstrate this particular stretch. And again, you'll see why, because we're just trying to keep our knees square as we rotate through. But just kind of do a check-in. So I'm just going to kind of see where my mobility is. So again, like to do a checkup. Going to put this to the side for a second. Now with this object, so this is a foam roller, it could be a ball, maybe you don't even need it. You're just going to use it to kind of keep your hips square. But what we're going to do is we're going to use our outside hand on our knee, and we're going to use our hand on the bench. The idea here is we're just going to rotate or assist into rotation to try and improve that overall upper body rotation. So take a nice deep breath in, and as you breathe out, just keep your trunk nice and tall, and we're just going to rotate. I'm going to use this outside hand, as I say, and the inside hand here to help assist that rotation. So take a nice deep breath in. As we breathe out, just rotating slightly. And follow the stretch with your eyes, that will really help you open it up. Now come back to the center. Now let's try the other side. So again, hand or the outside hand will be on the back of the chair or bench or whatever you're sitting on. The inside hand will help you steer the stretch. We're just trying to keep that torso nice and tall. Just take a nice deep breath in. So come back to center. We're going to just do another check-in, see if that's improved, and you can do it as many times as you like. So again, purely for demonstration purposes, just kind of helps to see what I'm trying to demonstrate here. And that is, can your passive range improve? Or do you actively need to work on it? So next thing we do, we're going to put this to the side. So again, we're briefly kind of going through. You can do this stretch throughout the day. We're not looking for any kind of cracks and pops and kind of deep overstretching here, so you feel it in your back. We're looking for a light stretch, so you feel this kind of spiral line open out. Second stretch we're going to do is a modified version. We're actually going to do kind of a hip opener at the same time. So let's start with our right leg crossed over our left leg. We're going to start by gently pressing the knee down, just to kind of get a light stretch on the inside of your hip. And then we're going to essentially push on our foot as with our elbow and place the hand on the foot to kind of get a assist, turning this way while still driving the knee down to open up the front of that hip. So this is kind of a pat your head, rub your tummy type of stretch. We're going to push down lightly, and we're adding some traction with the foot to turn our body, but at the same time we're staying nice and tall through the movement. Then we come back. We're again trying to get this knee to come down as we turn our body, but we're staying tall. So you'll actually end up turning kind of this way in effect. And then let's just press down a little bit to kind of get that hip to open up. And let's lean back at the same time just to get a little bit of space in that joint. Should start to feel it tease open. So again, it's just the front of this hip right here that can get really crusty and dry when you're kind of sat down a lot. We're just pushing down and leaning away. Idea again, just to kind of grab the hip. And if you want to assist, you can actually lift your foot as well. So once you master kind of this first position, and the turning separately, you can kind of combine them. So let's just bring this other leg across. Again, we're starting to push the hip down a little bit, create a little bit of space in the joint. You can even lean back if we need to. Again, getting a little bit of a local capsule stretch in the front. Feel really great to kind of open up that hip. And now we're going to start to add pressure downwards. We're going to use the back of the chair and we're rotating around as we take a breath out. We're going to turn, and rather than coming this way, we're actually going to turn up this way. Deep belly breaths, and let's finish off with a little bit of a stretch of the hip. Pushing down to help release this hip here. We can lean back just a little bit, and then forward, back, and forward. So let's move on to our next stretch. We're going to come down to the ground. We're going to put our tools away for a second. We're going to use our foam roller next. So the idea here is we're actually going to open up the front of the hip. That should help with the spiral line effort as we kind of help to open up this turn, this low back, this front of our hip. We're going to lay on top of it. So hopefully this should stand out against my orange shirt, but it should stand out against the ground for sure. So laying on top of it, we're going to cover this belly button to hip kind of region with our other side of our body off the foam roller. And I'll lay down, you kind of see what I mean. And we should add a little bit of pressure to the hip flex, the psoas, and our diaphragm as well as we kind of breathe into it. So take a nice deep breath in. Breathe out, deep breath in. As the hip falls down to the ground, we're going to add a little bit of weight into this area. So again, you should feel a little bit of pressure, not too much though, it shouldn't be painful. You should feel pressure down into the foam roller around the area where your stomach kind of lays on top of it. You should feel it into your hip as well. And if you feel nauseous and you feel like your lunch is coming up, you may be in the wrong place or have too much pressure. So again, take a nice deep breath in. Keep your head neutral. Drop your hips down. Once you kind of feel like you've hit the bottom and you've got enough pressure, you can then start to lift your your leg up till it's straight, and you should sag in the middle into that kind of foam roller, but you should feel a nice deep stretch. Now we're going to slide the handle on the floor. Relax, bring it back. So again, we're just stretching the leg out, keeping that pressure on the foam roller, feeling a release as we stretch away. And now let's change sides. I'll change sides again so you can see. But the idea here is we're keeping this foam roller pinned down with the weight of our stomach into our psoas. And as we relax, that tissue gets stretched from both sides as we stretch up and we stretch this leg out. You can even bring your leg into a little bit more extension if you want to. But the idea here is that we're not going too crazy with the pressure because we want it to gently release. So laying on the foam roller again. We're going to lay around about where our belly button is, and we should feel the hip kind of at diagonal. If it were, you don't want to lay on top of it for this one, on top of the hip bone that is. So take a nice deep breath in. Feel that pressure. Breathe out. Just sink into it. Let's lift our hip up. Breathe out. Stretch out. Excellent. You can stay on as long as you need to. You can even come off the foam roller and come into a little bit of extension if that helps you. But my advice is just go with a little bit of a stretch and lightly come into it. Now we're going to lay on our back. We're going to do the same thing the other side. We're going to release our QL a little bit. So again, both these areas when we're in rotation are going to affect one another. So we want to get a little bit of both. This one's going to be a little bit more gentle. We don't want to go too crazy. So we're a little bit of pressure. We want to actually go across the whole of the middle of our back. So if this one irritates you and you find that this is too much extension for you, you may want to skip over it. You may actually want to bring your legs up as well. But again, if you feel that this is too much for you, skip over it, and you want to control this with the breath. So ideally, we're just taking a nice deep breath in. Let the weight of your body kind of just gently relax over the foam roller. If you feel it around this area, just above your butt, that's kind of what we're going for with this one. When you're ready, we can actually move down just a little bit. We're just gently going to start to lean back. You can even have your hands behind your back to have a little bit of support there. But we're just looking to kind of open up slightly. The breath. You should feel your back, low back start to ease up a little bit. Now we're in this position. We're actually going to lean back, lay back on the floor. And we're going to bring one leg, we're going to lay our hips to the side, is what I meant to say. We're going to put one leg on top whilst we lean the other way. Now, if you find that this leg doesn't quite touch down, just go to where you can with both legs together. And as we start to breathe through this section, you'll find your hips start to open up a little bit. So take a nice deep breath in. As you breathe out, let your hips drop down to the ground. And then let's change sides. So again, with this one, just rotate as much as you can based on what your breath does. So as you breathe out, you'll find that this hip kind of starts to open up, this low back eases out and your hips start to fall towards the floor. So again, bring your arm out to the side. We'll rotate our head slightly this time. And we're going to take a nice deep breath in. As you breathe out, let those legs fall down a little bit. You feel a little bit of a stretch across this low back. Okay, let's go one step further with this one. We're going to bring this leg across the top, so now we have this 90-degree angle or so, or thereabouts. Kind of the hip opener position we use on the bench. You can actually lift your hip from this position to do the same kind of stretch. If you found the seated one didn't quite work for you, the idea is I'm just using this leg as kind of a pivot to open up the front of this hip. But we're actually going to bring this leg down towards the floor. So now I'm kind of in this pretzel type position. I'm going to stretch away from the hip, and I'm going to use this leg as this pivot. So take a nice deep breath in. Keeping that back on the floor, my hips slightly off because my legs are across my body, and I'm trying to come diagonally across this way as I breathe out. So deep breath in, breathe out as you rotate. Open that hip up a little bit. Rotate a little bit more. Open that hip up a little bit more as you breathe out. And then ease that stretch off the hip first. Ease your back off second. Bring your leg across. Let's go the other way. So just gently come out that stretch. If you're jerky and you come out suddenly, that can lead to issues with the low back, or at least some discomfort. So legs across the midline again. So again, we're starting in this position where we kind of did that kind of hip opener earlier when we were seated on the bench or the chair, and we're just lifting our hips slightly just to feel a little bit of a stretch. Now bring our hips, feel a little bit of a stretch there, and then we're just going to kind of rotate. As we bring that elbow down towards the floor, we're just stretching that low back. Deep breath in. As you feel the stretch across that low back. Rotation. Should feel a light stretch across that low back. Let's just gently ease ourselves out of that stretch. Again, you can spend a little bit more time on that if you would like to. But the idea here is that we're just kind of giving you ideas, we're just going through some basics. And again, if you're on the replay, you can always pause it as well. So the last one we're going to do is a little bit of a stretch wave. So those who've done this class before will know this one, but we're actually going to ease or go through it a little bit quicker, just to cover off a few of the simpler stretches through the stretch wave. So about 90 or so, we're going to start with a couple of gentle waves across the front of our knee. So hands either side, chest in line with the middle of the knee, or the middle of the chest in line with the knee. Stretch up, come down, rock back up, come forward, chin up your chest. You're going to turn that hip slightly. We're keeping the foot down on the floor on this side. We're going to stretch it across the front of the leg. We'll rotate slightly to the side. Now we're going to turn and bring our elbows to the floor. So again, we're a little bit quicker on the stretch wave today. You can spend longer on each section if you feel that your hips are still tight, because the idea here is we're stopping that stretch reflex from kind of kicking in, and we're easing through the stretch in a wave. So now we're going to rotate under. So again, we'll work on that rotational piece. We're going to turn our body. On the out breath, that's when we're going to follow that hand with our eyes. So we're following it all the way up. We're rotating across. So deep breath in. Spend a little bit longer on this. It's going to be about 5 or 6 passes. So deep breath in. All the way up. Keeping that knee down to the ground if you can should help you find a deeper stretch through the movement. So let's just change sides. So we're going to come onto the other side now. So knee is down on the floor, hands up over or either side of the knee, the middle of the chest in line with the top of the knee. So we're stretching over, top, chin back up the chest, coming down, stretching over. Just going to turn to the side so you can see. Stretching my chin up, decompressing my spine as I stretch up to the ceiling. And then I'm coming down to the floor. So again, rotation is what we're trying to go for here. Should feel it through the low back, the hip. So we're turning our torso under, following up with our eyes as we rotate forward. Deep breath in. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. And then come back to center. See how you feel. See how your low back feels. See if that's helped you. And then we're just sitting in a nice tall posture. So I'm just driving my hands into the ground. Just trying to keep my chest nice and tall. I'm just driving my chest up. Just so in this nice tall posture with my chin tucked. And let's come to a standing position. And let's just see how our hips and shoulders feel. Just see how our spine feels in this nice tall standing position. So hopefully that rotational set of exercises really helped kind of open up your back, your spine, and help you feel a lot better. So thank you again for joining me for Mobility Magic on a Monday. We're here at the same time each week. 11:30, and if you have anything you'd like us to cover, you can either reach out to myself, Fascial Stretch Simon, The link will be in the video that I post afterwards, or you can reach out to the Good Life Fitness team or leave a comment, which is way more useful, on the video that we post afterwards. Otherwise, have a great week. I will see you all next week, and ciao for now.